Engaging the Naturalist Intelligence, Rethinking School Curriculum. If learning is about being connected to the world, then why does education so often ignore the natural world that surrounds and sustains us? Why are students who feel most alive in nature, who notice patterns in leaves, animal behavior, or weather shifts, rarely seen as gifted by traditional academic standards? Could it be that those with strong naturalist intelligence, who learn best through contact with the outdoors, ecosystems, and living things, are not underperforming in school, but rather underserved by classrooms that confine, sterilize, and disconnect learning from nature? Naturalist learners thrive when they can interact with the environment, observe life systems, and understand the interconnectedness of people, animals, plants, and place. These are the students who are deeply disturbed by pollution, who instinctively know how to nurture a plant, care for an animal, or sense a change in the weather, even before it becomes obvious to others. But if we keep them trapped in rows of desks, behind digital screens, and detached from natural rhythms, how can they possibly stay engaged? What if we made room in education for hiking-based science lessons, ecology projects, sustainable gardening, or weather tracking adventures? Wouldn't that allow them to learn in the very environments where their minds come alive? Imagine a classroom that doesn't just teach about the environment, but actually takes students into it. A naturalist learner could be mapping a trail, identifying bird calls, interpreting cloud formations, or designing a wildlife garden, not as side projects, but as core learning experiences. These students are often inspired by scenic views, grounded by animal interactions, and driven by a deep respect for the balance of ecosystems. Shouldn't we allow them to integrate their intelligence into every subject through nature-inspired art, biology-based storytelling, or math projects that use patterns found in shells, trees, or weather cycles? They also excel when animal and plant associations are used as learning tools, remembering concepts through analogies with ecosystems, identifying species relationships, or designing creative work inspired by natural patterns like fractals or leaf symmetry. These students find inspiration in natural textures, outdoor sports, environmental stewardship, and even the spiritual calm of wilderness. What if we taught them that their love of nature isn't just a personality trait, but a form of intelligence that the world desperately needs, especially in times of ecological crisis, climate change, and disconnection from the land? If we continue to view education as something that happens inside four walls, then we are excluding an entire group of students whose most powerful learning happens under open skies, with soil on their hands and curiosity in their senses. So the real question is, are we designing education that roots students in nature, or are we asking them to grow in artificial soil? Because when naturalist learners are encouraged to explore the outdoors, observe life, and build meaning through the lens of the earth, they don't just learn about the world. They learn how to protect, interpret, and live in harmony with it. And that is a kind of intelligence no classroom should ever overlook. Naturalist intelligence is the innate ability to notice patterns in nature, connect with living systems, and perceive subtle differences in the environment. Students with strong naturalist intelligence are drawn to the outdoors, inspired by landscapes, sensitive to changes in weather, and deeply aware of the interconnectedness of life. Yet traditional education often pulls students further indoors, into sterile, artificial learning environments that separate knowledge from the living, breathing world it originates from. If nature is the ultimate teacher, shouldn't our classrooms embrace and integrate the natural world rather than wall it off? Imagine schools where students are encouraged to study biology by planting gardens, understand mathematics by measuring ecological patterns, and learn art and design by drawing inspiration from the symmetry and fractals found in nature. Naturalist learners would not simply read about life systems from a textbook. They would hike through ecosystems, observe animal behavior firsthand, experiment with sustainable gardening, and design conservation projects. Wouldn't this not only deepen their engagement, but also nurture a sense of stewardship, wonder, and responsibility toward the planet? When naturalist intelligence is engaged meaningfully, students begin to see education not as abstract, but as alive. They recognize the relationships between ecosystems, species, and climates, and can translate that understanding into practical environmental solutions, sustainable innovations, and holistic worldviews. They become deeply attuned to how small changes ripple through entire systems, a skill that is crucial in tackling the complex global challenges of climate change, food security, biodiversity loss, and public health. Developing naturalist intelligence doesn't just lead to careers in biology, agriculture, conservation, or veterinary science. It also nurtures designers inspired by nature's efficiency, engineers who create biomimicry innovations, and policymakers who approach societal systems with an ecological mindset. The naturalist thinker brings a sense of balance, pattern recognition, and systemic sensitivity that is urgently needed in every field. Aren't these precisely the capacities that education should be prioritizing in the 21st century? Engaging naturalist learners also cultivates emotional resilience and mindfulness. Students who regularly interact with nature develop greater emotional regulation, heightened curiosity, and a more profound sense of connection beyond themselves. They experience awe, respect, and humility, emotions that foster both creativity and compassion. Shouldn't we be teaching students not only to master information, but also to feel themselves as part of a larger living system, capable of both influencing and being influenced by the world around them? If education continues to treat nature as an occasional field trip rather than a foundational learning environment, we risk raising students who are alienated from the very systems their survival depends on. But if we integrate nature-based learning through ecological projects, outdoor classrooms, wilderness adventures, naturalist art, and environmental storytelling, we foster holistic thinkers, grounded problem solvers, and compassionate citizens of the earth. To nurture naturalist intelligence, schools must move beyond traditional subjects and offer experiences that combine science, art, ethics, and adventure. Students should be invited to track seasonal changes, build biodiversity gardens, design eco-architecture models, create nature-inspired art, and analyze real environmental data. Education must not only teach about nature, it must happen within nature, through nature, and for nature. When we fully engage the naturalist mind, we don't just create better scientists, we cultivate sensitive stewards, creative innovators, and wise citizens who understand that their lives are part of a much greater whole. In doing so, education becomes not just preparation for a career, it becomes an initiation into living wisely, sustainably, and beautifully on the earth.